everyone, and welcome to High Flight Financial. My name is Kirk Reagan, and I am an Air Force veteran. I served 25 years in the Air Force. I am married. I have 2 sons, a stepdaughter, and a lovely grandchild. After serving in the Air Force, I decided to retire, and I was going to plan on calling it a career at that point. So I retired for approximately 18 months, and the first 6 months were absolutely fantastic. I got to all of my honey-do lists. I got to all of my home improvement projects. And then once I got finished, I became extremely bored. And I wanted to do something more. I wanted to give something back to the community. I felt like that piece was missing. So when I started to look for something that I was going to be doing, I looked for something that I loved doing, first of all. I wanted to make sure that it was passionate about it, something that I liked and something that I enjoyed going to do every day. I also wanted to make sure that I was giving back to the community. That's a big part of who I am. I like to help people, and I wanted to make sure that my next career opportunity would allow me to do that. So I first started off at a major firm in order to get some credibility to myself. I've always helped people in the past. Throughout my Air Force career, I've helped other veterans along the way, and I've always enjoyed doing so. But I felt like I lacked some credibility in order to go out and do that as a professional business. So I did all of the classes and all of the coursework necessary for the Certificate of Financial Planning, and then I signed on with a major broker-dealer, and I was an advisor there for 2 years. And there I was able to help almost 1,000 clients with different financial situations and different backgrounds. And that helped me gain the experience that I knew was going to be necessary in order to help the larger community. One of the most popular questions I get asked is, why did you choose financial advice? And I can tell you it started when I was a second lieutenant. When I was a second lieutenant, I was invited to a dinner where a financial advisor gave a pitch in order to join his services. However, upon closer look at it, I realized it was a heavily loaded fund, a 50% load, because that was legal back in those days. I was also a single person, and he was recommending that I get a whole life policy. I did some homework on these products and realized that they were entirely inappropriate for myself, but they were very appropriate and very profitable for the person that was selling them to me. Then later, as I was deploying as a lieutenant colonel, I was helping a young airman who was handed a very similar products and signed up with a very similar advisor, where they sold her funds with extremely high expense ratios and another whole life policy, completely inappropriate for her situation. I wanted to make sure that those things didn't happen to anybody that I was trying to help. I wanted to make sure that I offered a better solution. There's lots of financial advisors out there with lots of wonderful qualifications, and I wanted to make sure that you could keep as much of your hard-earned money as possible in your own bank accounts. There's different ways of charging from financial advisors. So if you're looking with anybody else, I encourage you to ask them, how do they make money? Typical models are an assets under management model, where you basically pay a percentage of your assets every year. So as your accounts go bigger, the fees grow bigger. And that 1% or whatever the fee is charged on a recurring basis, whether you speak to that advisor or not. There's also a subscription model where you pay per month. However, that model rewards a financial advisor who doesn't reach out to clients because they've already paid for the services. So anytime they spend with the clients is out of pocket from them. So that's why I developed mine as an advice-only, fee-only financial planning firm, where I provide a comprehensive financial plan for a set fee. And then as we go on in our relationship, you decide how often and how long you want to meet. If you want to meet quarterly, that's fine. If you want to meet semi-annually, if you only want to meet when a big major life event happens, I'm happy to do that. It'll all be just charged at an hourly rate. So you are choosing between many different advisors, I'm sure. So why pick me? Well, first of all, I'm a veteran. So I've served 25 years in the military, and I understand things like PCSing, TDYs, deployments. What is BAH, BAS? How are they taxed differently? What is the new blended retirement system? Or if you have the old system, how does that work? I'm also a retired Air Force veteran, so I understand how retired pay works. I understand how TRICARE works and TRICARE for life. I also understand the VA disability process and how those VA benefits are taxed differently than the rest of your income and how that affects your overall financial plan. I also have over 30 years of investment experience. Even as a young child, I sat on my grandfather's lap and listened to dividends, stock payouts, and PE ratios from the very beginning of my days. I also have 19 years as a real estate investor, and therefore I understand the challenges of unwinding those assets. Sales can bring large capital gains and depreciation recapture. I understand all of those things. And I've also explored all of the different options like 1031 exchanges, charitable remainder trusts, and just outright sales. As someone who wanted to retire early, I also understand how to retire early and what that takes as far as assets in taxable accounts versus retirement accounts, and how those burn down accounts will affect your overall financial plan, and how to create savings goals for each of those 2 times of your life. I also understand the pitfalls of retiring early and what things that you'll need to consider in order to be able to do so. I've also funded education accounts. I've also spent from those education accounts as my son has gone off to college. I'm also active in my local church, and so I understand the best ways to do charitable giving, to give highly appreciated assets, or donor advised funds, which I've also used, as well as charitable remainder trusts, and even qualified charitable distributions from your retirement accounts. I understand all these different ways of giving and can explain to you exactly which one is most appropriate for your situation. I have the experience to help you in all of your challenges, and I also have the passion to want to help you and make sure that you have the most efficient and optimized retirement savings plan that also takes into account your unique emotional needs. Everybody has unique risk tolerances and goals, and I want to make sure that you reach all of your financial dreams. I hope you set an appointment today.